Lakshmi Sivadas. She is a senior program manager and program lead for JournalismAI Innovation Challenge, and today she'll talk about the latest report. Please come to the stage, Lakshmi.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining me for this session. I'm Lakshmi Sivadas. I'm a senior program manager at the JournalismAI project at the London School of Economics. And over the next 20 minutes, I'm going to be talking about AI exploration on a budget, or how small publishers across the world are cracking the code when it comes to using AI in their newsrooms. So before I get started, I wanted to introduce the project itself, JournalismAI, for those of you who are unfamiliar with it. So JournalismAI is a global initiative that empowers news organizations to use artificial intelligence responsibly, just like it says on the screen. But we're also a project of Polis, the journalism think tank at the London School of Economics and Political Science, and we are supported by the Google News Initiative. We run several programs as well as research activities as part of the JournalismAI initiative, and two of those are New Powers, New Responsibilities, and Generating Change, two of our research reports that came out in 2019 and 2023. These research reports looked at how different news organizations across the world were using AI at that time. That was in 2019, and again, a refresh in 2023. Needless to say, we found that a lot of these newsrooms were using AI across the news cycle, from news production to news distribution and news gathering. And then we also found other insights, like the need for collaborative journalism within AI, or the need for technical teams to collaborate with editorial teams to create good journalistic and AI products. Apart from that, we found a great disparity between the use of AI between legacy newsrooms as well as small newsrooms. To this end, we deliver programs. So I'm sorry, I keep looking here to make sure that the clicker is working. But yeah, so we deliver programs like the JournalismAI Academy, which is our flagship program, which teaches journalists around the world how to apply AI to their newsrooms, the risks associated with it, the challenges associated with it, and obviously the opportunities associated with it. Apart from that, we recently launched the JournalismAI Skills Lab up top there, which empowers journalists and editorial staff specifically in creating AI-based tools, or MVPs, with the help of live instructor-led trainings. Apart from that, we also have fellowship programs, which is a collaborative experiment that brings together editorial and technical people from different news organizations to collaborate and come up with AI-based tools. And finally, we also released very recently the Discovery module, or the Discovery course, which is an email newsletter course, again, to teach AI literacy to different newsrooms and people around the world. So through these activities, we came up with a few obstacles that we observed that most of the small newsrooms across the world face. One is obviously they work on very tight budgets, and from that, there are a series of other concerns that come up. For example, they are mostly resource constrained, and many face capacity constraints as well as lack technical expertise. To this end, when we talk about technical expertise, most journalists also double up as being the technical counterparts within the newsroom, and that's definitely not ideal. So at JournalismAI, we decided that we needed to do something about it. How can we empower small newsrooms across the world to take the next step? How can they move away from all of this knowledge that they've gained from the different programs that we run and the programs that others also run in the industry, and move towards action and using AI and experimenting with AI? And this is where the JournalismAI Innovation Challenge comes in. We launched this last year with the support of the Google News Initiative, and we gave 35 grantees around the world, so 22 countries to be exact, $250,000 or $50,000 in grants to experiment with AI across 3 thematic areas. The 3 thematic areas are misinformation and disinformation, coming up with revenue and subscription strategies, as well as coming up with new formats to engage new and existing audiences. At the end of the program, by the way, the program was a 9-month working period during which time they all experimented with AI across those 3 thematic areas. And by the end of the grant period, 96% had a working prototype or tool, 70% improved internal workflows, 70% saw better AI literacy outcomes within their teams, and 39% reached new audiences. Oh, I forgot to turn it here, but that's what it was. So how did they go about doing this? And this is where we get into how small newsrooms have been making the most of AI. I'm going to take 4 case studies from small newsrooms within the Innovation Challenge to exemplify exactly what they've been doing right, as well as the challenges they faced and the lessons they learned from it. For the first case study, we have the Daily Maverick. I'm not sure how many of you have heard of them, but Daily Maverick is an independent South African newsroom with a staff count of 51 to 100 people, and their main challenge was how to boost their voluntary membership subscriptions. So essentially, they found that a lot of people were moving to their landing page. However, they did not click to subscribe, and they didn't complete the action. As Fran Waitin, who is the head of growth at Daily Maverick, puts it, we saw that often our messaging was so emotional that by the time the readers got to our standard landing page, something didn't resonate with them, and they failed to complete the sign-up. I'm not sure how many of you here face the same difficulty, but what the Daily Maverick team figured out was that they were putting too much effort into acquisition, like many other newsrooms, and not so much into the other 2 aspects of the membership funnel, like engagement and retention. So they decided to come up with an AI-based solution called Revenue 360. What Revenue 360 does is that it not only looks at acquisition, but also at engagement and retention to make sure that they have loyal members who keep coming back to their website. So on the landing page, for example, they added heat maps to understand user behavior on the landing page, and they figured out that 75% of their readers don't go below the fold. What does this mean? This means that they needed to give targeted messaging to their users to ensure that they keep coming back and that they complete their action. Second, they wanted to drive meaningful engagement, and this they did through the Daily Maverick Connect platform. So as I mentioned, acquisition was their landing page and optimizing their landing page. Engagement is through Daily Maverick Connect, which is a social networking platform made just for the Daily Maverick users and for their members to interact with each other and with the journalists of the Daily Maverick. So this still hasn't been open to public yet, but this is something that they were testing. Finally, they created an impact tracking tool called Impact Engine, which looks at which uses an LLM trained on past stories to scan parliamentary notes and identify how Daily Maverick's journalism affects change in parliamentary meetings. So overall, with this, they noticed a 100% increase in conversions as opposed to when they didn't take part in the Innovation Challenge or Innovate with AI. Some of the big lessons that they learned here is that AI can really help fast-track project development, and this is something that they told us, and not just me saying it because I run the project. They also thought of the value of working in an interdisciplinary team. For example, all projects in the Innovation Challenge involve the collaboration between technical and editorial counterparts apart from product thinkers. So the value of working in an interdisciplinary team was something that was a big lesson for the Daily Maverick team. And then it also gave them additional boots on the ground. Because their primary concern was also a resource constraint, the fact that they were able to use AI gave them additional boots on the ground. Next, we go to a European newsroom, the European Correspondent, based out of Switzerland, and again with a staff count of 51 to 100 people. Their main challenge was how to maximize resources and provide feedback to journalists pan-Europe. The European Correspondent is a newsroom that caters to the entire European continent, and as Philippe Kramer, the co-founder of the European Correspondent, puts it, why should someone from Estonia need to know what is happening in Portugal? How do you tell a story from Norway that is important for someone from Italy? We don't have the resources in terms of editors to manage that many stories, so a lot of times you have to do the work on your own. I think this is something that would resonate with many small newsrooms across the world. The fact that you may be dealing with a lot of journalists who are freelancers at times, but not have enough editors to actually look at the work that they've been producing. So what did the European Correspondent do? They came up with a solution called Vika, the companion editor. So this uses AI to increase the number of conscious decisions journalists make. So essentially what it does is it works alongside the CMS of a news organization, in this case the European Correspondent, and it comments on the draft of every journalist's copy. So it gives them suggestions related to style, tone, and also the internal audience needs model of the European Correspondent. And it works with a two-layered prioritization system. In the first layer, it looks at structural changes. So maybe you put in a placeholder that you forgot to remove. Maybe something doesn't work in the structure that needs to be redone. And then the Vika, the AI companion editor, actually suggests what needs to be done. And the journalist is free to take the call depending on his discretion. And in the second layer, it talks about changes in typos, some small minor errors, and things like that. So what are the lessons for the European Correspondent? It's on focusing and limiting how you apply AI to make it the most useful for your use case. So the European Correspondent had many features that they wanted to include in Vika. However, they decided that focusing the idea would make the best use of the AI. And also they mentioned that it would be better if you could find precise use cases to make the most of the technology. Now let's look at one more case, and I have only two more cases left. This one is Nawat. Nawat is a Tunisian news organization. It's a smaller team, 10 to 20 people, 16 people totally who are actually working as journalists and staff. And their main challenge was how to make the organization's vast historical archive accessible to all in English, French, and Arabic. So what they did was they created an AI called Nawat AI to help overcome historical amnesia in Tunisia. Tunisia, which is backsliding on democracy, and it's very difficult to work there for these journalists. But they also had another issue. The journalists who were joining as freelancers or who were joining the organization anew were not familiar with the kind of coverage that Nawat did over the last 20 years. So what they did was they created this tool which would give them a chronology of historical events as covered by Nawat over the last 20 years. It works internally for journalists to discover past reporting on an issue, and it works externally for Nawat's users to ask questions and follow up. So we imagine a timeline and a user going in and asking what happened, what is the evolution of women's rights in Tunisia over the last 20 years. So it would give them every aspect of how Nawat has covered it in the last 20 years in a timeline. And finally, the time machine, similar to what I mentioned right now, summarizes a particular period in time and the key events associated with it. So here again, the challenge was accessibility, but more importantly, how to overcome historical amnesia. So the lessons learned for Nawat was how to tap into the power of the archive. So Nawat realized it had vast archive, but not as many people to actually work with it. And so they used AI to help open up the power of the archive. They also talked about being strategic in planning for financial sustainability and to not focus on competition, but to focus on innovation. The reason they said be strategic in planning for financial sustainability is sure, this grant will last for quite some time, maybe 9 months, but after the grant, how do you make sure that the product lives through and is useful for the journalists? So the way they were going to do this is by selling the actual Nawat AI to other newsrooms within the region to be able to use the same capabilities that they had developed. Finally, as I mentioned, don't focus on competition, focus on innovation. And for this, I actually have a quote from Hussam Hajlawi, who is a DevOps engineer at Nawat. He says that we are not innovating because there are competitors and we need to be better in the market. That's not really what we do. We are innovating because you have to cover your bases while operating in an extremely uncomfortable environment. And in this case, he was referring to the country's volatile political atmosphere. And now, the last case, which is Gubi Labs, an organization from India. Also a small, very small organization. It's got 10 to 20 people, and I think there were just 6 people working on this particular project. Their main challenge was how to improve time-consuming manual workflows in surfacing research papers. So Gubi Labs is a newsroom which covers science communication and reports on science communication. So essentially a day in their lives or a week in their lives would look like they go and look for research papers across all the reputed sources. They read the research papers. They come up with a storyline for each of these research papers, go and write it, draft it, publish it as everybody else does. Now, the problem for them was that it's not just 1 or 10 or even 20 research papers that they're reading. They're reading anywhere between 1,000 to 2,000 research papers. So how did they go about solving this challenge? They came up with this tool called Babbler, which uses AI to improve article discoverability within the newsroom. So what it does is it reduces time and effort spent on reading research papers to surface newsworthy papers. How they did this was first they came up with a newsworthiness index that ranks and sorts the research papers from reputed sources. So instead of reading 1,000 papers, they only have to read the top 50. And from there, they also created a pipeline that generates storylines or story ideas from research papers based on the research article, and also developed social media collateral. Now, all of this, I'm going to get to this point, but all of this is not without human intervention. There was some level of human in the loop throughout all of these case studies as well. And as Sudhira said, who is the director of Gubi Labs, now instead of skimming through thousands of paper, which from India alone is anywhere between 2,500 to 3,500 papers, we just have to pick up the top 50 from the newsworthiness index across different topics. Some of the lessons that they learned was to develop your products in time-boxed sprints. So the sprints they refer to over here is the development cycle in which the innovation challenge is structured. So every 4 weeks is a development cycle where you plan a milestone and you try to meet that milestone, and the 5th week is where you actually report on the milestone. What this does is it gives you a clear picture of how a product is developing and whether it's developing according to what you need it to be at. Finally, they also say to maintain human-in-the-loop systems for accuracy and to gain newsroom confidence. As I mentioned, all the news organizations that I've been talking about have been using human-in-the-loop systems. Over here, what they mean is that the output is checked by a human, the storyline is given to a human to write it, and so it's not like the AI actually generates the generates the story. Now that I've talked about some of the case studies that we work with at the Journalism AI Innovation Challenge, I also like to talk about the key impact that they've had. It's both internal and external. As I mentioned earlier, it fast-tracked AI development and adoption. It helped overcome a can't-be-done mindset. So every small newsroom feels sometimes that they can't do something because they just don't have enough people to do it. There's just not enough boots on the ground, as somebody else said. But with the help of AI, they were able to overcome this by acting like a force multiplier. It also improved newsroom-wide AI literacy and understanding. How did this happen? This happened because all the journalists who were a part of the newsroom somehow took part in the development of the product, whether it is by giving feedback or testing. It also helped break newsroom silos. So as I mentioned multiple times, interdisciplinary collaboration was one of the cornerstones of the Innovation Challenge, and this helped them talk to each other and break newsroom silos. The key impact was also external. It provided avenues of valuable breakthroughs or results for almost all, if not all, the candidates of the Innovation Challenge. It helped them serve their communities better. It helped them launch a new product or service in quite an efficient time. And it helped them enhance existing product offering. Now I'm almost coming to the end of my presentation. One is, what were the 6 lessons for the field from the innovation challenge. One is to always start with a problem or need. So this is for anybody who would like to experiment with AI. It's tempting to just start using a technology, but what all our programs have told us so far, and all the participants of our programs have told us so far, is that without an actual problem, there is no point in applying AI to it. And there's also no point in applying AI for the sake of applying AI to it either. Second, adhere to editorial guidelines and standards while building the AI tools. Many times, the participants of this program use their editorial guidelines as input data for the AI systems to learn from, so that they also know what the editorial standards of the organization is. Work in interdisciplinary teams and collaborate outside of the industry. Again, not only cross-disciplinary within an organization, but some organizations like Full Fact from the UK also collaborated with Cambridge University and other academia to develop their products. So that's something that you shouldn't overlook. Integrate tools for maximum adoption seamlessly. So this refers to a lot of the candidates, again, making sure that the journalists within their newsroom are comfortable using the AI tools being created. In the case of the European correspondent, this meant mimicking the existing writing environment that the journalists were using, so that there was maximum adoption of the new, and there was no circumvention of the system to use their own systems. Feedback and iteration are crucial. As I mentioned, one big thing to remember while trying to create your own AI-based tools is to make sure that other journalists within the newsroom and other stakeholders within a news organization are involved and giving feedback and iterating on the product even as it is being developed. This is, again, another way to maximize adoption and also to make sure that it's seamless. And finally, don't overlook the human element. I know I put this right at the end, but in fact, every news organization who's taken part in the Innovation Challenge has ensured that they have human in the loop throughout the process, whether it is to check the output or somewhere to check the data or to just give user feedback as well. So with that, I'm done. Thank you for listening. And I guess we have some time for questions if anybody has any questions. No? Okay. Thank you all.